The Adventures of Sparrow Little Gray Chapter 1, the beginning of the ordinary. On the edge of a lush forest, there is a small family of sparrows that live in the hollows of old oak trees. Here lives a sparrow named Little Gray. His feathers are not flashy, gray, and unremarkable, fluttering inconspicuously. Some of his siblings have bright feathers, some have beautiful singing voices, and Little Gray doesn't seem to stand out at all. His daily task was to follow his family around foraging for food, pecking at the seeds on the ground and occasionally stealing grains from the farmer's field. "Little Gray, why are you always in a daze?" Sister Xiaokai once flew back with a grain of wheat in her mouth and said with disgust. With a faint chestnut sheen, she is the most beautiful sparrow in the family. "I'm thinking, what's the point of us flying around like this every day?" Little Gray whispered, his eyes looking at the mountains in the distance. The mountain is shrouded in thick fog, and legend has it that a mysterious giant eagle lives there, guarding the secrets of the forest. Meaning? It would be nice to be full. Xiaokai giggled, flapped her wings, and flew away. Little Gray was not satisfied. He had heard the elders' legend that deep in the forest there was a tree of wisdom, bearing fruit that granted wisdom and courage. After eating that fruit, any bird could become a hero. Little Gray thought that if he could find the tree of wisdom, he might be able to prove he was not ordinary. Chapter 2, the determination to go. One morning, when the morning sun was just turning the sky red, Little Gray stood on the branch of the old oak tree and gathered the courage to say to his family, "I am going to find the tree of wisdom." The family sparrows were stunned. Father Old Gray frowned and said, "Little Gray, that's just a legend. The forest is full of dangers, eagles, foxes, and even storms can kill you. I know it's dangerous, but I want to try." Little Gray's voice was small but firm. The mother softly advised, "Son, you are already fine, why take the risk? I don't want to be just an ordinary sparrow for the rest of my life." After Little Gray finished speaking, he flapped his wings and flew into the sky, leaving his family members stunned. He flew over familiar fields, over babbling streams, and into the depths of the forest. The trees here are tall, shading the sky, and the air smells of moss and earth. Little Gray's heart was pounding, excited, and scared. Chapter 3, New Friends and Challenges. Little Gray had been flying all day, his wings aching and his stomach growling. He stopped on a pine tree and pecked a few pine nuts, only to hear a low roar. Looking up, he saw a red squirrel staring at him, its tail cocked high. "Those are my pine nuts," the squirrel screamed, pouncing to grab them. Little Gray quickly dodged and explained, "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was your food." The squirrel stopped, sizing up Little Gray. "You little sparrow, you look pretty honest. What's your name?" "My name is Little Gray, and I'm looking for the tree of wisdom." "The tree of wisdom?" the squirrel laughed. "My name is Ah Hong, I've lived for 3 years, and I've never heard of such a tree. But you've got some guts to venture into the forest alone." Little Gray was inspired by Ah Hong's enthusiasm and asked, "Would you like to help me?" Ah Hong thought for a moment and said, "Well, it's been boring lately anyway. I know this forest, and I might be able to help you ask for directions." So, Little Gray and Ah Hong set out together. Ah Hong jumped between branches, and Little Gray flew in the air, chatting as they went, soon becoming friends. Ah Hong told Little Gray that there was an old owl in the forest, said to know many secrets and possibly provide clues. They came to a dead tree, where an old owl lived in the hollow. The old owl's feathers were already gray, and its eyes were like 2 full moons, shining with wisdom. Young sparrow, why are you looking for the tree of wisdom? The old owl asked, its voice low. I want to prove that I'm not an ordinary sparrow, Little Gray replied honestly. The old owl was silent for a moment, then said, the tree of wisdom does exist, but the path is treacherous. You'll have to make your way through the valley of the viper, over the storm bluffs, and face the trials of the giant eagle. Are you ready? Little Gray swallowed and nodded, I'm ready. The old owl gave him a map, a pattern carved into the bark of a tree, marking the locations of Viper Valley and Storm Cliff. Remember, true wisdom is not in the fruit, but in your heart, the old owl finished, closing its eyes. Chapter 4, The Ordeal of the Serpent Valley. Little Gray and Ahung followed the map and came to the Valley of the Viper. The grass was thick, and the air smelled of damp rancidity. Ahung said nervously, I don't even dare to come to this place. I heard a poisonous snake can kill you with one bite. Little Gray took a deep breath and said, we need to be careful. They moved cautiously, Little Gray flying low and Ahung jumping among the grass. Suddenly, a green poisonous snake burst from the grass and pounced on Ahung. Little Gray swooped down, pecking the snake's head with his beak, and the snake recoiled in pain. Run! Little Gray shouted. The two fled desperately and finally broke out of the Valley of the Viper. Ahung panted, Little Gray, you saved my life. I didn't expect you to be so brave. Little Gray said embarrassedly, I just didn't want to lose my friend. This experience taught Little Gray that courage isn't always grand, sometimes it's just a split-second decision. Chapter 5, The Challenge of Storm Bluffs. After leaving Viper Valley, they came to Storm Bluff. It's a high cliff with strong winds howling between the cliffs and clouds rolling as if a torrential rain is about to fall any moment. Little Gray's wings trembled in the strong wind, barely keeping his balance. It's too windy. Ahung shouted, clutching a branch. Little Gray gritted his teeth and said, I have to try. With all his strength, he flew to the top of the cliff against the wind. The wind pushed him like an invisible hand, and he was blown off again and again, but he adjusted his direction each time. Finally, he landed on a rock at the top of the cliff, exhausted. Ahung climbed up and exclaimed, Little Gray, you are a miracle. There's a small cave at the top where an old crow lives. The crow listened to Little Gray's story and said, you have shown courage, but the fruit of the tree of wisdom can only be plucked with the eagle's permission. Go, find the eagle and face its trial. Chapter 6, The Trials of the Giant Eagle. Little Gray and Ahung continued, finally arriving at the legendary giant eagle's lair. It was a towering tree, its top hidden in the mist. The giant eagle stood on the edge of the nest, its wings spread 3 meters wide, its eyes sharp as knives. Little sparrow, why are you here? The giant eagle's voice thundered. I want to pluck the fruit of the tree of wisdom and prove my worth, Little Gray said, his voice trembling slightly. The giant eagle sneered, you little thing, worthy of talking about value? Unless you can pass my trial, fly through the misty canyon and find the tree of wisdom. The misty canyon is the forest's most dangerous part, with dense fog obscuring the view and rocks scattered everywhere, risking a crash into the walls if not careful. Little Gray knew this might be his final test. He and Ahung entered the misty canyon. The fog was so thick he could barely see his direction, flying by feel. Ahung guided from the ground, shouting, left, right. They cooperated seamlessly and finally saw a radiant tree, the tree of wisdom. The tree bore a golden fruit radiating an alluring glow. Little Gray flew to the tree, about to peck the fruit, but suddenly stopped. He remembered the old owl's words, "True wisdom is not in the fruit, but in your heart." He turned to Ah Hung and said, "I don't need this fruit. I've got courage and friends, and that's enough." Chapter 7, The Way Home. Little Gray and Ah Hung returned to the old oak. His family was amazed hearing his story. Father Old Gray said, "Son, you have proven yourself. You are not an ordinary sparrow, you are our hero." Since then, Little Gray no longer feels inferior for his ordinariness. He and Ah Hung became legends in the forest, inspiring many small animals with their stories to pursue their dreams. Little Gray understood that true value lies not in outward flamboyance or earth-shattering achievements, but in the firmness of the heart and loyalty to friends. He was still the gray sparrow, but his heart shone like the tree of wisdom. Do you still like today's story? If you like, please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the like icon. You can receive notifications and hear the latest stories as soon as possible. Good night, my baby.